The book of Daniel from the Hebrew Bible contains a prophecy written over 2,000 years ago. The story takes place in ancient Babylon, the largest city at its time, part of the Babylonian Empire. The story goes that King Nebuchadnezzar II had a dream that deeply troubled him. So he called on all the wise men of the court to not only interpret his dream, but to tell him what he had dreamt. When they told him that this was impossible, he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. When a young man named Daniel heard of this, he went to the king to ask him for more time so that he might interpret his dream. That night, Daniel had a vision. This is what Daniel told the king. The great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous, dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head was made of pure gold, the chest and arms of silver, the belly and thighs of bronze, the legs of iron, and the feet partly of iron and partly of baked clay. This was the dream, and now we will interpret it to the king. Your Majesty, you are that head of gold. After you, another kingdom will arise, inferior to yours. Next, a third kingdom, one of bronze, will rule over the whole earth. Finally, there will be a fourth kingdom, strong as iron. It will crush and break all the others. Daniel 2:31-40. The famous Greek historian Hesiod talks of humanity's history in a poem called Works and Days around 700 BC. He breaks history down into different ages based on metals. The gold, silver, bronze, and iron generations. Archaeological evidence shows that there was a predominance of different metals at different times in history, which came to be known as the Stone, the Bronze, and the Iron Ages. According to Hesiod, at a remote time in history long before the Stone Age was the Golden Age. Much like the biblical Garden of Eden, Hesiod said, "They live like gods without sorrow of heart, remote and free from toil and grief. Miserable age rested not on them, but with legs and arms never failing, they made merry with feasting, beyond the reach of all evils. When they died, it was though they were overcome with sleep, and they had all good things, for the fruitful earth, unforced, bare them fruit abundantly. They dwelt in ease and peace upon their lands." Works and Days 109-120. And then came the Stone Age, so called because the abundance of stone tools from this time period, and huge stone structures called megaliths found throughout the world. Then, in the late Stone Age, gold first makes its appearance in the archaeological record. When the 4,500-year-old royal cemetery at Ur was uncovered, the full extravagance of the ancient Sumerian elite was revealed. They adorned themselves with gold. Ate from golden bowls, and drank from golden beakers. The treasures found were something out of legend. Like the legendary ancient rulers of Ireland, the Tuatha Danann. It was said that, quote, "their horses had golden bridles, a splendid sight was their knights, each with a jewel on his forehead like a star, and their green mantles fringed with gold, and golden helmets on their head, and golden greaves on their limbs, and each knight having in his hand a golden spear. The Legends of Ireland by Jane Lund. In the tombs of it was also found that human sacrifice was practiced on a lavish scale. When royalty died, all of their servants were buried with them. In Varna, Bulgaria, the oldest golden objects in the world were found, dating back some 6,500 years. In what was the first known burial of an elite. The gold was found in only a few of the tombs, the first evidence of social hierarchy. Social hierarchy is a defining characteristic of civilization, and among the remnants of the first human civilizations, an abundance of gold. Is it just a coincidence? Or did gold actually enable the rise of a ruling elite? Is this why Daniel told the king, "Your Majesty, you are that head of gold"? Silver was one of the earliest forms of currency, in the form of silver bars or ingots. The first coins were made in ancient Lydia from electrum, a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver. There was a river in Lydia abundant in this precious mineral. The ancient Greek historian Herodotus said of Lydia that it does not have many marvelous things to write about in comparison with other countries, except for the gold dust. It was electrum. By accumulating and minting it, Lydia became the richest kingdom in the world. The fabulous wealth of King Croesus is legendary. He was the richest man in the world. It was his father who had first started using the coins. It was hard to determine the percentage of gold within the coins, so the kings began stamping them to guarantee their value. And this was the birth of the monetary system that we know today. It has been proven that ancient Lydian coins contain more silver than the naturally occurring electrum in the region. Evidence that they added silver to their coins overvalued them and increased their profits. With an increase in the money supply, larger armies could be paid, conquests funded, empires built, and unified through a metallic currency. It was the first Persian Empire that conquered Lydia. They instituted their own gold and silver currency and became the largest, richest, and most powerful empire that the world had known. The Bronze Age, a period of human history characterized by the use of bronze. Hesiod said of the Bronze Age, "Their implements were of bronze, their houses were of bronze, and they did their work with bronze. There was no black iron." At many late Bronze Age sites, there is what archaeologists call a destruction layer, evidence of widespread fire and mass murder, leading historians to believe that the end of the Bronze Age was violent and sudden, what they call the Bronze Age collapse. In Works and Days, Hesiod said of the fourth generation that it will nurture many. It was nobler and more righteous. It was the godlike generation of men who lived throughout the boundless earth. Grim war and dread battle destroyed a part of them. But to the others they received, apart from other humans, a place to live, and they live with a carefree heart. For them is a life-giving harvest that comes to fruition 3 times each year, produced by the life-giving land. For the Father of men and gods released him from his bonds. Verses 157 to 173. Hesiod said, "If only I did not have to be in the company of the 5th generation of men, and if only I had died before it, or been born after it, since now is the time of the iron generation. Now truly is a race of iron, and men never rest from labor and sorrow by day, and from perishing by night, and the gods shall lay sore trouble upon them. There will be no favor for the just or the good, but rather men will praise the evildoer and his violent dealing." Works and Days, 174 to 190. Iron was more abundant, stronger, lighter, and easier to mass produce than bronze. Steel, made from iron ore, came to be one of the most powerful agents of conquest in human history. Empires were built, and others were utterly destroyed, depending on who had this technology. Trees were cut down to make charcoal, fuel for the iron furnaces which burned day and night. The Iron Age led to widespread deforestation.
So down they come, some of the world's oldest, biggest, and tallest trees.
Dwindling forests limited the expansion of the Iron Age, until it was discovered that burnt coal could be used instead of charcoal from trees. Burnt coal, or coke, is also used to make steel. The powered engine led to new technologies in steel manufacturing, making it easier and cheaper to mass produce.
This is it, steel. Only a few hours ago it was iron ore. Now it's finished and on its way to become a part of the new world it's building.
The abundance of iron and steel, coal, and later petroleum led to unlimited expansion of the industrial age, known as industrialization. Mechanized mass production, the factory system, was set up, like what William Blake called the dark satanic mills that revolutionized cotton manufacturing.
And what a beautiful machine they have provided to slice a path of doom with my sweet breath to guide it.
Steel is the infrastructure of our civilization. From weapons to tools to implements, now truly is a race of steel. The legs of the statue were made of iron, the feet of steel. Coal and petroleum gave life and movement to it. Ships, trains, and cars. The iron and steel kingdoms really did devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The enormous and terrifying statue represents human civilization, made of metals because the foundation of civilization is metals and mining. The gold head, the rise of a ruling elite whose wealth and power rests on their monopoly over underground resources. The silver chest and arms, the creation of money and the expansion of empire. Then the kingdoms ruled by bronze, the empires built by iron, and the current steel age. These ages are represented as one statue, one body, because they are all part of the same system, stretching back to ancient Babylon, called the Babylon system. In the prophetic vision from the book of Revelation, the statue is depicted as a woman. In Revelation 17:3-5, it says, I saw a woman sitting on a beast. The woman was arrayed in purple and adorned with gold and pearls, holding in her hand a golden cup full of abominations. And on her forehead was written a name of mystery, Babylon the Great, mother of prostitutes and abominations of the earth. In Revelation 18:23, it says, For the merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Justified by notions of progress and development, the whole world has been industrialized. Is it a coincidence that the sites of the oldest human civilizations are now just deserts? The carvings on the rocks at Göbekli Tepe, dating back some 10,000 years, show an abundance of wildlife, suggesting that the surrounding hillside was once densely forested. In the wake of human civilization, deserts. Civilization is built from underground resources, metals, and hydrocarbons. Mining to extract them creates abominations of desolation, or total destruction. By living and working within this system, manning the machine of industrialization, are we not then perpetrators of the destruction it causes? Is this why it says, Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues, for her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her iniquities. And now there is a movement of people opting to live off-grid outside of the system, before it too collapses in what is prophesied as a violent and destructive end. In Revelation 18, verse 21, it says, A mighty angel took up a stone and cast it into the sea, saying, Thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. This is what happened at the end of the king's dream. A rock was cut out, but not by human hands. It struck the statue on its feet of iron and clay and smashed them. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all broken to pieces, and became like chaff on a threshing floor in the summer. The wind swept them away without leaving a trace. But the rock that struck the statue became a huge mountain and filled the whole earth. Daniel 2:34-35. Daniel said, "This is the meaning of the vision of the rock, a rock that broke the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold to pieces."
Come on! Help it grow!
The God of heaven will set up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, nor will be left to another people. It will crush all those kingdoms and bring them to an end. But it will itself endure forever. Verses 45 and 44. What other kingdom can never be destroyed, nor left to another people? But the kingdom of nature.